There are a lot of great anime films. Too many to even count if you ask me, but I'll try anyway. Today we're going to be looking at some of the greatest anime films of all time. But for the sake of fairness, I'll be keeping the Ghibli movies to a minimum. To start off this list, I have to talk about this juggernaut of a film. It is not an understatement to say that Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away is one of, if not the most influential anime film of all time. Winning an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature in 2002, this film helped bring anime films and the larger medium of anime to a Western audience. While anime had been introduced to the West for decades, it was always in a small niche. From 2000 to 2007, a change was happening that brought anime to a wider audience, and by extension made it more mainstream. Thanks in part to this wonderful film. Look, this film hardly needs a summary, but briefly, Spirited Away tells the story of one girl's journey into the spirit world where she must survive long enough to help free her parents and get home. A quick Google search will show this film's amazing reception with fans and critics alike. You will find no shortage of fans putting Spirited Away on the top of their lists, and this guy is no exception. If this ringing endorsement is not enough to convince you, then by all means, read the mountain of literature on how influential this film has been on anime and film. So when this film dropped, many people were calling Makoto Shinkai the next Miyazaki, much to his dismay. Whether that title is fitting or not, Your Name's critical and box office success cannot be understated. Part romance drama, part time-traveling epic, Your Name tells the story of two high schoolers, Mitsuha and Taki. After a comet is seen in the sky, the two find themselves not only switching bodies, but traveling through time to do so. What follows is a passionate, interstellar-like journey to find real human connections. When this film dropped back in 2016, it was an instant success. Before long, it even surpassed Spirited Away for the highest-grossing anime movie of all time. While it did not win any Academy Awards like Spirited Away did, Your Name still deserves a place on this list. To give you some context at how well this film did, it is currently sitting at a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes and has just about as many reviews as Spirited Away. In fact, Your Name is the most recent film that was considered on this list. It kinda gives you some scope as to what kind of films you're gonna see later on in this video. If people don't put Spirited Away as their number one Miyazaki movie, it's usually because this film took its place. Princess Mononoke is the cool Ghibli fans' pick, and for good reason. It is among one of the darkest Miyazaki films in his filmography and touches upon some of his most common themes so well. Princess Mononoke touches on the importance of preserving nature and the destruction war brings and what happens when you let hatred and greed consume your heart. It's about the story of Ashitaka and his travels after being exiled from his village following a demon attack. During his travels, he meets Sun, a human girl raised by wolves. He also meets Lady Eboshi, a powerful merchant who manufactures weapons. The two are locked in constant battle, and Ashitaka is thrust right in the middle of it. Like many of Miyazaki's movies, Mononoke would lead the way towards the boom at the turn of the millennium when anime was beginning to be accepted by the larger mainstream crowd. I think most of us remember something called A Month of Miyazaki. In fact, James Cameron cited this movie as one of his inspirations for the movie Avatar. He stated that the landscapes helped him create the ecosystems of Pandora. Alright, let's take a break from Ghibli and Miyazaki for a bit and talk about some truly iconic anime films. The 1980s and 90s brought us a new genre of science fiction, cyberpunk, the edgier version of science fiction. With the release of films like Blade Runner and novels like Neuromancer, science fiction was brought into a new age of high-tech and low life. This new subgenre also influenced anime in a big way. Thanks to the initial push of cyberpunk, we got Akira. Akira is a world of degenerate motorcycle gangs, fast action, and attitude, along with perhaps the most iconic motorcycle drift in all of film history. You know the one. Countless cartoons and anime have referenced the Akira motorcycle drift. If Ghibli made the push for anime in the mainstream back in 2000, films like Akira helped establish anime in the West back in the 1980s. Akira has made it onto nearly every list of top films in cinema and top animated films. It even consistently landed on the top science fiction films of all time. Without the success of Akira, we would not have some of the other films on this list that we will cover in just a quick second. Things are about to get pretty trippy with this next entry. Paprika is an adaptive anime film based on a 1993 novel of the same name. The story is about a psychologist who uses a device that allows therapists to enter the dreams of their patients in order to help them. Around the late 90s and mid-2000s, there was a growing interest in anime that focused on the mind and the more psychological aspects. Other anime that come to mind are Paranoia Agent and Serial Experiments Lane. Paprika dives into what really makes people tick and the odd mix between reality and fiction. This blend, along with the idea of diving into people's dreams, has led people to speculate that Paprika influenced Christopher Nolan's 2010 film Inception. Critics have argued that the similarities between the two films are too numerous to be coincidental. Whether Nolan was inspired by Paprika or not, the film also shares its influences on its sleeve. The idea of identity and technology accessing the subconscious on multiple levels is similar to other anime franchises like Ghost in the Shell, which I'll get into later. Despite this, Paprika is still talked about to this day when the subject of psychological anime is brought up. Now let's look at a much sadder movie, one that's still ranked as one of the saddest anime movies of all time. Grave of the Fireflies might be a Ghibli movie, but Hayao Miyazaki did not direct or make this film. Not every Ghibli movie is a Miyazaki movie after all. Grave of the Fireflies tells the story of two spirits living in a post-World War II era and trying to carve out a life during this harsh time. The film did not pull any punches when it came to the graphic nature of World War II, which has helped solidify its place in anime film history as one of the greatest. A lot of critics say this is an anti-war film given the graphic depictions of what war can bring, but the film focuses on the two characters' personal tragedies that are a result of the war rather than looking at the battle between good and evil war is often framed as. This film may not have won as many awards as the previous films on this list, but has been the subject of not one, but two live-action adaptations. Grave of the Fireflies stands consistently as not only a great anime film, but a great World War II film. So Akira was part of the initial push for Cyberpunk back in the 80s along with Blade Runner. Ghost in the Shell was inspired by Blade Runner in the mid-90s. This film would then go on to influence the Matrix series of films. It's like a cycle. Ghost in the Shell is peak cyberpunk in both aesthetics and philosophy. Not only are we shown a dystopian future where the divide between the very rich and the very poor is like night and day, but we have advanced technology and cybernetics that push the boundaries of transhumanism. What really is alive? What are the qualities of being human, and can a machine truly replicate that? Ghost in the Shell may not have been the first film to really ask those questions, but it gave those kinds of questions new meaning with the character of Motoko Kusanagi. One of the central themes of this film was humanity. Motoko is a cyborg, and the only human part of her left is her brain. She has a ghost, or a soul, but she struggles with finding an identity when the rest of her is a machine. A ghost in the shell, if you will. You see what I did there? Most people don't really see anime as scary. I mean, the aesthetics don't really seem that scary. And don't get me wrong, there are horror anime and manga, but a lot of Japanese horror deals with the supernatural or very grotesque. Junji Ito is a great example of Japanese horror. However, there are a few anime films and properties that deal with a different kind of horror, the psychological kind of horror. Perfect Blue is about Mima Kirigoe, a pop idol star who decides to retire and become an actress. This change would not only send ripples through her fanbase, creating a stalker who is more than a little upset about the change, but also affect Mima personally. Mima's life soon spirals out of control when she can no longer distinguish between her fantasy persona and reality. The themes of identity, existential dread, and perception make this film especially jarring. The success of this film has had its influences on American films as well. The director of Requiem for a Dream directly references a scene in Perfect Blue when Mima is in the bathtub. Elements of Perfect Blue were also used as a framework for Black Swan, though the director has denied any direct homage to the film. Alright, time for the final Miyazaki movie on this list. See, I only included 3, which is less than most lists naming famous anime movies would include. But did I pick a doozy or what? Castle in the Sky is a remarkable film. It was the first film animated by Studio Ghibli way back in 1986. Castle in the Sky is your run-of-the-mill fantasy adventure story by today's standards, but the kind of legacy it left influenced a lot of popular Japanese anime and games. The structure of Castle's plot is given what has been dubbed the Laputa effect. This is similar to the monomyth in Western storytelling, and it has been used in other games and stories like Final Fantasy with the design of airships. It was also cited as an inspiration for other games like Mega Man Legends, the Lunar series, Valkyrie Profile, and even Bioshock Infinite. Some of the anime it's inspired include Nadia, Secrets of the Blue Water, and the more recent No Game, No Life. In fact, No Game, No Life makes a direct reference to the film in Episode 5. Castle in the Sky continues to influence media both Japanese and Western to this day. Last but not least is a very odd film. Cowboy Bebop the movie, or Cowboy Bebop Knockin' on Heaven's Door, is one of the only franchise films to be this highly rated. I mean, when you think about it, Cowboy Bebop is one of the highest rated anime series of all time, so it would make sense that the film is also just as beloved. That being said, Cowboy Bebop the movie has the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score on this list, sitting at 64%. So why even include it? Well, critics' scores are just one of the pieces to what makes a good film. There's an argument to be made that a truly great film is one where a discussion can still be made. There's a lot to talk about with a great film that everyone agrees on, but there's also a discussion on what merits make a good film when there are dissenting opinions. A critic might say that while the overall film was good, there were some parts that perhaps did not feel as good. Alternatively, critics can say these flaws aren't flaws at all, but give the film character. Ultimately, this film is on here for the debate. So what do you think? And that was just a small sample of the greatest anime films of all time. My favorite is Princess Mononoke, but I want to know what yours is. Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more anime videos. Thanks for watching.